Welcome back to Sun, Sand, and Soul. Josh, Tomey, David, Haber, welcoming Mayor Howard Weinberg from the city of Aventura. Mayor, welcome. It's great to have you on the program.
Great to be here. Thank you.
And I know we've got a fair amount, as we said earlier, to unpack, and it would be impossible for us not to start with the Hero Housing Program that we've heard so much about. David and I are both huge fans of the concept of the program,
and of you,
absolutely.
I appreciate that.
And would let you got to butter the guest up immediately, David. You got to give a little bit of breathing room.
You know, my wife says there's no sense having popcorn without butter. So
there you go, Mayor. We both love to hear. What was the genesis of this? How did this happen?
I appreciate the question because I love talking about it. It's one of my passion projects, and I hope it'll be a legacy also. So I knew in August of 2022 that I would be the next mayor. The election wasn't until November, but on August 19th at 4:30 p.m., when the filing deadline ended, and my opponent had withdrawn a month earlier and nobody else filed, I became the mayor-elect. So the things that I had been thinking about, on the back burner, I put them on the front burner. And of course, I had served for 8 years on the commission. I knew what the city needed. My mind is always percolating. So literally, first I should say, due to my OCD, I keep a pen and paper on the nightstand. Old school.
Love that.
Take notes, David.
No, I have the dictaphone thing. I use my phone.
I went through that phase a while ago, but I'm an idea man, right? Like they say in the movies. So I literally woke up from a dream with the Hero Housing concept.
Wow.
And I wrote it down. And I knew that George Perez and Related Group had 4.5 acres to be developed on 191st Street. So I thought, I don't know George, I've never met him, but I know that early in his career, he was involved with affordable housing.
For sure. That's where he started.
I said, this is the guy to pitch it to. I literally went to Coconut Grove, had lunch with him. I'd never met him in my life. And I said, I have a great idea. Everybody wins. It's a P3. You're going to love this. And I can
explain what a P3 is for our listeners.
It's a great thing, in my opinion. This is what good government should be about. It's a public-private partnership where everybody wins. You got to give to get, right? So he's already going to build something because he has, as I like to explain to my residents, some of whom think we should just say, enough is enough. My building is built. Just tell them we don't need any more buildings. And
yeah,
I'm like,
sure.
Okay, that's great. Now, if you're prepared for us to stroke a $90 million check and you're prepared to not have the lowest tax rate in South Florida anymore, then you're going to yell at me for that. So they're going to build. My job is to get the best project we can. That's where P3 comes in. So I said, I'm going to give you, we're going to negotiate, but what I'm looking for is a certain amount of units in that building. I don't like affordable housing and I don't like workforce housing. For Aventura, we're 3.5 square miles of very expensive real estate. Workforce housing, affordable housing doesn't work for us. But I want the best teachers and I want the best police officers. And I call it R&R, and it's not rest and relaxation. It's recruitment and retention. We are forever competing for the teachers. And they'll go to American Heritage or they'll
go to the private schools.
And we can lose a cop to BSO or whatever it is. So I said, here's what I want. We're going to talk. I want a certain number of those units to be in perpetuity for the exclusive use of our teachers and our police. We have a K through 12 school system, charter school, and we have a police department. I can't do it for fire rescue because they're not ours. They're the county.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I can't tell if they're still assigned to the station in our city.
Right.
And I can't rely on the county not to, but we know if they're still on our payroll, if they're police officer or teachers. Right. So I want the best policemen. I want the best. And we also have our own emergency dispatch center. That's the hardest job in the world to fill. The highest pressure to answer the phone calls on 911. I want to include them as well. And those we always lose. You spend a lot of money getting them certified, and then they get a bonus
train
if they
them,
go
and
to,
then they're gone.
If they go to Broward.
Right.
So I said, I want them to be able to live there. This is, again, the difference. It's not affordable workforce. These are luxury units that people pay a lot of money for. The same granite countertops, the same front desk, the same swimming pool.
So this is multifamily. It's not condo. It's apartments.
Well, I was envisioning apartments. Okay. And I wanted 50% of the going rate. If it's our teachers, you got to take a haircut, half price, 1-year leases. The following year, they still work for us, another 1-year lease.
So renewable if they're still working.
They're still there. If they're not, they got to leave. If we can't fill them because we don't know what the market will be, what the demand, after a certain date, you can do a 1-year lease at full market to anyone. But it comes available again, like every year, almost like health insurance. Okay, there's a window period, right?
Right.
An enrollment period, if you will. Right,
exactly. So I said, this is what I want. We'll know what the rate is because whatever the rent is for a 2-bedroom, cut it in half. You're going to get added density. And we'll talk about some other things, also. Now, as it turns out, what they're planning there is a condominium product. Makes it a little more difficult, but still works. They will be responsible, meaning the developer, in perpetuity for X number of units as rentals. Indistinguishable from the rest of the building.
Right.
They're still the same everything. We're not talking separate entrance. We're not talking about cheaper appliances.
So the developer will somehow own those units in an entity and make it available for them to be rented out on a yearly basis to city employees in the police department, dispatch, and school.
As part of the Hero Housing programming, what you just said is 100% correct. They will have an entity. They'll create a subsidiary. Yeah. And all those costs are on them. It costs the city zero. This program costs the city nothing.
So what you have to give up?
Exactly. So we entered.
That's what
we entered into negotiation. Now I want to throw in the monkey wrench here, which is live local. Live local for a city like ours is a disaster. Unintended consequences. Look at what's happening with Bal Harbor shops.
Right.
Look at what's happening with the beach in Hollywood. Look at what's happening with the Clevelander in Miami Beach in the Deco District with 50-foot limits. It is a disaster of unintended consequences. When you allow a developer to do what he wants and bypass the local commission, and we can't say no as long as he says 40% affordable.
Right.
You're destroying the fabric of a community like ours. It's within 1 square mile, they can go to the maximum density and the maximum height.
Well, we're going to talk to Mayor Levine Cava about this when she comes on next month, but it's good to hear your perspective as the city.
So 1 square mile, we're a 3.5.
Yeah, 1 square mile is 50 stories.
It's a third of your acreage, if you will.
It basically destroys our city. So this is the anecdote. No developer will choose live local if we'll negotiate with them on Hero Housing. Okay? It's a much better idea. Everybody wins. So here's what we ended up with. Knowing that that's also sort of a gun to our head, the project is going to be built next door to the city government center garage. So what we ended up with is he's going to build 295 units. This will be the first out-of-the-box Hero Housing. So again, we don't know how to gauge demand.
Right.
So 20 of the units forever, in perpetuity, will be rental Hero Housing. This is a condo building. That's number one. Number two, a $1 million donation for the new school. That's my other passion project that I'm going to get built because we have 1,500 kids on the waiting list. We have a lottery. Every year we break moms' hearts.
Is this for K through 8 or is this for high school?
So we have a K through 8 called ACES, Aventura City of Excellence School. We have Don Sofer High School.
That I know of.
I need to take my K through 8 and break it into an elementary
and a middle school.
I can take 1,000 to 1,200 kids off the waiting list. All the realtors sell Aventura. One of the selling points is the
Don Sofer.
School, sure.
Don Sofer for sure.
They never tell the moms, and I say moms, I'm a dad.
They never tell the moms and dads that there's a big waiting list.
It's really the moms that when it comes to school, let's be honest, for the most part, it's the moms. And they never say, by the way, little Shlomi only has a 38% chance of winning the lottery. That part they never tell them. So
notice it's Shlomi.
So,
as he wears his American Israeli flag, for those out there that know the mayor, he's very pro-Israel. And
well, that's our city.
Yeah.
I'm going to get 3.5 acres. I'm going to build a new Don Sofer High School. This is my goal. I'm going to take the existing Don Sofer High School. That will be the middle school. So there'll only be 3 classes in there instead of 4.
You're going to repurpose the existing building.
Right.
Okay.
And then our ACEs K-8 can be K-5. So we'll have great expansion. And when we build the new high school, it will be with all of the things that we fail to do in the existing building. You know, what the classrooms are too small. There's not breakout rooms. We don't have a media center. We don't have a black box theater, a weight room. It's going to be great. So this is my goal. And
what's it cost to build a school like that? Just ballpark.
I don't want to say anything wrong, but it's several $1 million. However, I'm going to get the land deeded to us. $15-20 million of land free. This is going to happen again. I do it the same way.
This is from Related.
P3. No. Nothing to do with them. I'm digressing to my next passion project. But the point is then we'll have a greater demand for hero housing. We're going to have another school.
That will open up,
So we're starting with 20. But that's why I wanted $1 million towards building the new school. So 20 hero housing units, $1 million donation, $1.25 million donation for 10 years of a freebie Tesla X. I also brought freebie to Aventura. We have the largest. We have 12 freebies, which if people want to know what that is, I'll tell you. It's basically free Uber anywhere in Aventura, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week.
It's like a micro shuttle. I mean, basically, you know.
No, these are Tesla X's. These are beautiful. But anywhere in town.
That's crazy.
Okay. So, and it's from the transportation tax. That's how we allocate it. So it costs our taxpayers.
And this was one of your ideas as well?
I brought that to Aventura, yes, as a commissioner.
Was it one of those middle of the night scribble it downs, or was that a daytime?
It's a great story. I'll tell you right after this if we're still here.
We'll still be here. I promise you. If you can keep the listeners listening, we'll keep going.
We're tagging story. Elon right now, by the way.
So $1 million, $1.25 million for the freebie for 10 years. And then in the parking garage they're building, it will be contiguous to our existing parking garage. I saw a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to expand the space that our police department needs. They're out of space, but you can't just create more unless you get the adjoining property. So in the parking garage they build—
You got an easement for spaces?
They will deed 10,000 square feet in that garage to our city. So our police, we can cut a hole right through the 2 garages and our police department can expand for their vehicles.
Crazy brilliant.
So
at
the end of the day, it's 20 units at half price forever.
$1 million.
$1 million, $1.25 million, and 10,000 square feet. So that's the deal. They're not even thinking about live local.
And this has cost the city nothing.
Cost the city $0. And this project is going to happen. It's all approved. I need them to open their sales center. I need them to do 40% pre-sales. And then I need them to put a shovel in the ground. So it hasn't happened yet. Quite sure it will. Every developer that comes to town says, let's talk hero housing also. So
that's fantastic.
We'll be able to meet
Let me ask you a question. So if it's a condo rather than an apartment building, how do they come up with what the rent is?
So they're going to trust us to do comps around the city and tell them a comparable building, similar finishes, here's what the going rent is. And that's not a difficult formula.
No, of course
And they're
not.
still taking the half off that going rate.
And then that number minus 50%. So imagine half off.
It's an extraordinary discount. I mean, that's not just workforce discounting. That's
right.
That's,
think about 2 young teachers splitting a 2-bedroom. I mean, come on, that's great. And by the way, living in Aventura and riding their bike or walking to school.
Or taking the freebie.
Thank you very much. So it's a great deal for they're never leaving.
Right. Mayor,
and you will have continuity in the school.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mayor, I mean, setting David's comment about continuity aside, what do you feel like the long-term impact of that is going to be? I mean, we were talking before the show started about the idea of saying, listen, when you work and live in the same community, there is a different level of investment. We certainly know that. What do you imagine leading this community this is going to result in?
So what's fascinating is one thing that we all know, right? Nobody objects to the idea of a police officer living in their building, right? That people like. They want to see that car there too, right?
They definitely want to see the car.
But I will tell you, I had some pushback, believe it or not, initially, it didn't last long, when I was told teachers don't want to live where they teach. They don't want to see the mom in Publix, okay? I said, is this a theory that you made up? Or have you researched this? Because when I mentioned my idea to the principals, they love it because they've literally had candidates rescind acceptances when they start to see where they have, what the drive is in order to, where they have to live to afford.
45-minute drive in order to go to school is an hour and a half extra that they have to spend. And they lose quality time in their own personal life.
And so I said, you know what? They don't want to be seen in Publix. They'll go to the Sunny Isles Publix. They'll drive 5 more minutes and not see any moms from their school. I said, I completely dismiss that as, so to answer your question, I see a community where the teachers are part of the fabric, not just during the school day. I think it's delightful because teachers have kids too, you know?
I go one further. When I grew up as a kid and I grew up in New York, a teacher who was there for 30 years would have had you, your sister, or your brother. They know your whole family. They understand the fabric of your family, and they can relate better to the students because they know the whole family. I think it's an amazing thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it makes me also wonder that there's got to be some unintended but positive byproducts. I mean, I was just listening to you talk about the distance they're traveling and saying you got, taking cars off the road as well. I mean, you've obviously the whole county.
199th Street.
I mean, the whole county would benefit right now. We know public transportation's an issue. Obviously, your community has a higher density and a smaller footprint, but it doesn't mean that it just doesn't have a resounding effect on the communities around it and inside Aventura, I'm sure.
100%. And the idea of getting cars off the street, right? That's what Brightline is supposed to help do. That's what Freebie is supposed to help do. That's what this is supposed to help do. I agree with you. And by the way, let me just say on the Live Local nightmare, which I get the rationale and the intention, and it's good in the right places. I have asked Tallahassee representatives on the Senate side and the House side with the upcoming session, and I've asked our lobbyists too, and I'll be up there myself asking for it. But my vision is tweak the bill, tweak the law so that there are exemptions. And there's a few ways you can do it. If your city is less than 10 square miles or 5 square miles, or pick a number, you're not subject to that. Or if your existing density is already 15,000 or 14 or 12,000 people a square mile like Aventura, you're exempt.
Right.
Or you can do it by population. But remove Key Biscayne, remove Surfside and Bay Harbor and Aventura. Remove us from the threat of what's happening to Bell Harbor right now. It's really extortion. The owners of the Bell Harbor shops, I don't know this. This is my intuition. They don't really want to build workforce housing in their mall.
It's all leverage.
Exactly, because the state gave them that power to say, you can't stop us, so you better work with us and give us something or we're doing this. It's not fair.
Right. It's a residential eminent domain for all intents and purposes. I mean, it's got.
Well, it's one of those things that the intent is good, but the execution of it is going to be very, very, very potentially harmful to certain cities.
The unintended consequences.
Yeah.
So I think the antidote to it right now is hero housing. But they should do something where we don't even have to be threatened.
So now let's ask you a couple of questions about this. Have other cities come up to you and say, how did you do this? We want to try to do hero housing.
Yes, several. And the reason—
Miami Beach, I hope, since I live on Miami Beach.
I don't recall who, and I'm close. I was just in Beverly Hills at the mayor's conference to combat anti-Semitism with Mayor Minor last week, and at the new Nova Music Festival exhibit in North Miami with him yesterday. We both spoke there. But I don't recall who exactly, but what I've been doing is sort of waiting because it hasn't actually broken ground yet. Like here I am talking about it somewhat hesitantly because I want to make a big splash.
You don't want to have a Conahara.
Exactly.
Well, and totally understood the fact that it's even reached the point that it has. I mean, David and I have labored over the combination of affordable housing and community issues a lot, and this is obviously so directed and so pinpointed. And for a city Aventura's size and density, it makes all kinds of sense. I have to ask, the thing that jumps into my mind is saying, why isn't this done more? Why hasn't this happened before? Putting the note taking in the middle of the night aside and your own intelligence to say it just makes sense. It seems like a common sense solution around building community and building affordability into that community for critical frontline employees.
So I agree with you. Why hasn't it happened? I don't know. I'm glad I'm making it happen, but I don't know. I don't want to say, well, no one's as smart as me, because that's not the case.
That's okay. You're allowed to. David does it all the time. He says it. I think he said it right before you walked in.
I can't remember the last time I've been accused of being humble, but in all honesty,
another thing in common.
I don't know.
We should be
why.
buddies. I'm telling you.
I don't know why it hasn't happened, but it literally came to me in a dream, and it seems like at the time it's like, wait, what am I missing here? Why can this not work? You know, what's going on here? Because it seems like a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer.
But I think we need to be frank and say it's not the same advantage. It's not as advantageous to a teacher in every municipality, right? The idea of living in Aventura, I'm quite proud to say, is very attractive to people.
Sure.
So it may be more attractive to live in Aventura as a job benefit. Then let's make it clear, this is a job benefit not based on financial need in any way, right? This is a job benefit, a fringe benefit of working for Aventura. Maybe it doesn't have the same attraction if it's a different municipality, and I don't want to begrudge, or I'm not going to say anything negative about any of my neighboring communities, but that's one thing, right? Also, the price point in other municipalities may make it, if it's already affordable to live there as a teacher or as a police officer, there's less attraction. But half off is half off, though, no matter what.
Yeah, but also the idea of being able to retain good talent. That is a very hard thing to do. When you have good talent, to retain it has a tremendous benefit. Continuity, having people that are qualified, not having to, lose them to another community. There's tremendous benefit in that.
And I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that we have lost very good teachers, and it makes our parents very upset. And when there is turnover, at our schools,
turnover equals turmoil.
Quite frankly, it sucks. Right. It sucks. And, we're very competitive on price, but there are other issues, one of which is
how far they have to drive.
Thank you.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So. And we know that South Florida suffers with that. And we've talked a lot about the public transportation issue. But to me, this also strikes me. And this, I'm from New England. And
where?
I'm from the Boston area originally. My parents live in New Hampshire, in a small town in the southwest corner called Keene. And one of the things that I appreciate when I go home, and I'll be there next week, is that sense of smallness, that sense of community, that sense of knowing your neighbor, that sense of beholdens to a community. And you wouldn't think of South Florida in this sort of ever-expanding metroplex we all live in, that there is the opportunity to create a sense of small townness, which is not a real world, I know, David. But that idea, there's a sensibility to it that says you don't have to feel like you're living in an endless city, even when it's part of an interconnected metropolitan area.
So a couple of things I want to say about that. Number one, I'm not keen on where you're from.
One for the mayor.
I waited too long for that joke.
It's okay. One for the mayor.
We'll give him a half point.
I give him a full point.
But I am from Connecticut, born and raised. And one of the things that I actually strive for in Aventura, and prior to that, I was the vice mayor in Surfside, and my kids were raised there. And it's the neighborhood feel. So in Connecticut, this is something that could not be replicated, but it's something aspirational, okay, in my city. Where I grew up, it is true that people did not lock their doors, okay? Now, maybe my parents were a little paranoid. I like to tell people, we did lock our doors, but everyone in the neighborhood knew exactly where the key was. So what really was the difference? I don't know. It was right in that knapsack just to the left of the door, inside the garage.
Right.
But
most people put it under the pot, under the potted plant. I don't know
potted plant.
I was going to say be careful. I was going to say be careful.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay.
But literally, my mother was the welcome wagon hostess for 20 years.
Right.
And she had.
You were that house?
No. Actually, she Well, I was that basement where all of the sponsors' tchotchkes, the gifts, the giveaways, the yardsticks, and all that, the traveling toothbrushes or whatever it was that she would give away for the sponsors, the inventory was there. Wicker basket, whoever moves in, she rings the doorbell.
Cookies.
And she says, here's an apple pie, But this is the churches, this is the paint store, this is who can do your carpeting, when people did carpeting.
We're going to have you pose for the Norman Rockwell painting in just a moment.
Here's what you need to know. Here's the phone numbers. There's no internet. Here's some phone numbers to register at the school. And everybody knew my mom. She also was a realtor.
So being a mayor runs in the family.
So she literally was like, oftentimes she would sell someone a house and then 2 weeks later ring their doorbell wearing her welcome wagon stuff.
Right.
And they're like, wow, this really is a small town. But the idea is they couldn't do door to door anymore. They couldn't get insurance for it, right? It's too dangerous.
You couldn't get by the concierge.
Yeah, you
But
can't get past security.
The idea of it being a neighborhood, and I feel like Aventura is like that. And that's the feel that I want. So having your teachers, my biology teacher in we called it junior high school, my biology teacher, Mr. Bouchard, was also the handyman that my mom would call if she needed something repaired and,
right.
That neighborhood feel. And we actually are big on community policing and getting our police officers. They've been delivering toys all week. They were at Target yesterday with kids in need, letting them shop the aisles for toys.
Nice.
And this is our uniformed police officers.
Right.
Then they took a whole bunch of toys to Jafco. This was just yesterday, but that's the idea. And I think Hero Housing plays along with it. But I get you on New England and neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a different question. You have all these luxury condos and apartments in the city of Aventura. And we've talked about this on Brickell, Sunny Isles, Val Harbor. Separate and apart from teachers and police, you have workers, people who clean, plumbers, security officers for all these condos, valet people, people who clean the pools, people who do landscaping. How do you get them there if people have to live in Western Pembroke Pines and drive 45 minutes? How do you, and this is what I mean by this. People don't want to, they don't want their maintenance being increased. But with gas as expensive as it is, how do you get the people there and tell them they can only make $13 an hour when they can't afford to live on $13 an hour? How do we approach this problem of the income disparity and the transportation complications of living so far from where you work? How do we address that?
How many problems do you want the mayor to solve in one sitting? Because
well, he already solved. Live local with
that.
Hero
We're going to get
Housing.
this all done today. By the way,
that's actually a problem that is much bigger than the 3.5 square mile boundary.
No, it's a problem of all of South Florida.
Right.
And the reason we bring it up with you is we're bringing it up with everybody because this is an issue that will have to be addressed, especially when we have the New Yorkers and Northerners coming down for the low taxes, and they are very wealthy people. They're not just coming to Miami Beach. They're coming to Boca. They're coming to Val Harbor. They're coming to Aventura. They're going to West Palm. They're going to all the places with money, but they need people to work for them.
So, and this problem exists in the Keys. There's no one in Monroe County.
They all live in Homestead.
We just talked about that in the previous
They all live in
episode.
Homestead and they drive cars down the road. But the reason I'm asking you, even if you can't answer with anything intelligent right now, which I doubt, is it'll give you something to dream about tonight.
He's stacking
That's
the deck.
one for me.
He's stacking the deck.
I'm going to answer you, but I want to tell you that you have the same issues in Colorado, in ski country. Right?
Yes, 100%.
You need employees, you need workers, you need people who are.
But they have workforce housing in Aspen.
And it's very strict requirements for new construction.
Yes.
So one of the reasons for the problem that you mentioned is because historically in South Florida, and we all come from somewhere else, right? In this room, historically in South Florida, our mass transit sucks or is non-existent, right? And that's the problem. One of the things that will be helpful is with the Bright Line. Now, that is not a commuter line. That is an expensive ride. Okay?
It sure is.
But coming to those same tracks will be whatever they're going to call it now, Tri-Rail Coastal. I don't know what they're going to call it. But once that train is going north-south from Kendall, and you can stop right in Aventura, and there's a pedestrian bridge that takes you right to the mall, and there's freebies. All the employees that work in the buildings, freebies available to them too. They just download the app. Freebies available to anyone.
You think you'll do a shuttle bus system going around or no?
So probably. We already have it, but it could be tweaked when the bridge is there. But my point is, if there is a fairly priced, reasonably priced monthly pass, which, by the way, the condos can provide that to the employees.
They sure
There could be
can.
a subsidy,
Right?
sure.
It doesn't
That
have
can
to
be-
come out of their pocket, it can come out of the condos. And now you can get to work in a reasonably efficient manner. But we really are, as you know, we're way behind. I mean,
Well, George Perez talked about it. If we want to be an international city and we really want to get into the 21st century, we need mass transportation. I would argue we not only need it north-south, but it's got to go across 595. It has to go across 836, and it has to go down down the turnpike. If it doesn't go to those areas, just going north-south isn't going to do it for us.
Right.
Just my personal
agreed.
opinion.
And it has to. We have to be able to get to the airport easily. But I mean, we've all probably spent time or lived in New York, in Boston, in D.C. The system works. The
San
system works.
Francisco.
Right.
Sure. So I think it's coming. I think it will be very, very helpful. A real commuter line on those tracks is going to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take a short break with Mayor Howard Weinberg, come back and talk about a few more aspects of the hero housing, as well as some of the other things that are going on in Aventura that we'd love to hear about. You're watching Sun, Sane, and Sold. I'm Josh Tomey with David Haber. Please join us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, iTunes,
and X, and Facebook.
and LinkedIn. We'll be right back.